I'm here. I'm Dr. Krishna Shri, and I'm here to introduce our very special guest and speaker. Let me just start with a brief introduction. Well, we have with us here a name that is really not so new to anyone that is working in the area of cybersecurity, actually. So we have with us here Dr. Sandeep Kumar Shukla. He's a professor of computer science and engineering at IIT Kanpur, one of the premier institutes in the country. And he headed the department between 2017 and 20 and was the Poonam and Prabhu Goel Chair Professor between 2016 and 19, along with being a joint director of the National Interdisciplinary Center for Cybersecurity and Cyber Defense of Critical Infrastructures at IIT Kanpur. For some of you that don't know, this is again one of the biggest cybersecurity centers that was awarded by the Government of India to IIT Kanpur, headed by Professor Shukla. He's also a joint director of the National Blockchain Project funded by the Prime Minister's Office. He is the program director of the C3I Hub, a technology innovation hub on cybersecurity created by the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. And prior to joining IIT Kanpur, he earned his PhD from University of New York, Albany, and he worked at GTE Labs, Intel Corporation, and also as research faculty at the University of California, Irvine, and a professor of computer engineer at Virginia Tech, Blacksburg. And Professor Shukla holds various awards, including the Presidential Early Career Award for Scientists and Engineers from President George W. Bush, the Wilhelm Friedrich Bessel Award from the Humboldt Foundation, a Distinguished Alumnus Award, Technology from the State University, New York, the Ramanujan Fellowship from SERB, India, etc. So I think we have with us here somebody who's extremely accomplished in the area of cybersecurity, a wonderful person, actually, who has always interacted with Amrita on several accounts, and we are extremely grateful for your presence here with us, Dr. Shukla.
Thank you, Dr. Achyutan. So I'm very grateful to you for inviting me to this conference. And I see I am in a very august company of very good speakers during the 3 days, I believe. So I wanted to keep this at a level where everybody enjoys it and not get too technical. So we recently did a study, something that I felt that was something that everybody should know. And that is that with emergence of new technologies, so if you name AI, machine learning, deep learning, now there is a new term called experience learning. There is IoT, there is robotics, humanoid robotics, weaponized robots. There are various things and also digitalization that is going on in rapid pace. We are facing also an immense threat in the cyberspace. And the way things are going, if you look at the news, for example, Ukraine has suffered massive cyber attack many times, but in last few weeks, they're all their government websites and government servers. Some of them were wiped out. And there are lots of things like last year we had this shadow, this solar wind attack on the US government, and many organizations. We see attacks on Indian cyberspace all the time, in power sector and various other sectors. So cyber warfare is becoming and feeling more real. And what I want to discuss today in an audio-visual way as to what are these threats and what we are imagining, or rather not imagining, but rather speculating would happen in the near future, some of which are already happening. So I want to, so this talk is supposed to entertain you rather than, put you into much stress of digesting any you know, very high technology. So what we want to do is we want to just discuss what we are talking about. Then we will talk about what are the emerging technologies that we are we are considering in this analysis. And then I'll go through a number of future crime scenarios, which are all cyber enabled. And that is something that we are worried about. And we are also warning the government that this is going to happen, and you need to actually take proper measures. So national cybersecurity policy, national cybersecurity architecture, national cyber policy, and national implementation and enforcement of cyber secure activities in all sectors of industry, governance, education, everywhere. So the emerging technologies that we studied were AI, machine learning, of course, that's one of the biggest emerging technology, IoT and wearable medical devices, UAVs or unmanned autonomous vehicles, both on road as well as in the sky, autonomous driving, robotics, especially humanoid and weaponized robotics, 5G technology that is coming for communication, AR and VR. You already are hearing a lot about renaming of Facebook as Meta. So we are talking about metaverses, and metaverse is not only in a Facebook product. There are multiple different products like that. Gaming that our kids are always getting involved in, multiplayer gamings, and certainly cryptocurrencies and the crypto assets. So these are the technologies which are designed to actually make our life more convenient, but it is also coming with very much scary possibilities, and attackers identified that already, that they can exploit these technologies and the ubiquity of these technologies everywhere. So they can actually make use of that to threaten us, to harm us, and to damage national infrastructures and national security. So, so I'm going to use some videos. These videos are not made by us. It is actually collected from various sources. So one threat that I think the cyber threats to the physical world. So normally we think of cyber threats as, your bank account gets hacked, or your website gets defaced, or your data gets exfiltrated from a data repository. So we think about cyber threats in the cyberspace. Now I want to first bring your attention to the possibility of cyber terrorism. And this video will explain it, so that I don't have to explain what it is. And can you hear the sound of the video? Hello?
You're not able to hear the sound.
So what we showed here is an attack that is cyber enabled, and also it is using emerging technologies such as guided missiles with creating formation with the technology of UAV, and also getting information about the location of certain types of vehicles, and then targeting them just sitting at a cafeteria. Now, this is not something that is currently out of reach of technology, and nation states are going to use this kind of, and maybe terrorist groups will be using this kind of cyber terrorism in the near future. So then we are talking about hybrid terrorism. So what is a hybrid terrorism? Hybrid terrorism is when you have used cyber attack to help a physical attack. For example, suppose the all the traffic cameras or the security cameras that are protecting important infrastructure around the country. If you do a cyber attack on those are usually networked, and they have a command and control center where people are actually supposed to view what's happening on the corners of the street and the buildings, inside the building, around the building, etc. If you disable it and feed an old video so that everything looks fine, and at the same time move in physically into attacking that building or bombing that building, etc., to escape the surveillance and escape being detected. So that we call hybrid terrorism. So that's a cyber-enabled terrorism, but actual terrorism is happening physically, but the by cyber attack a power distribution system so that you can create a blackout, and in the cloak of the darkness of the blackout, you could actually attack a building or do a murder, whatever, so that neither the cameras are working and neither the lights are there, and then because of the chaos that is created by sudden power loss, police cannot respond in time, and in the meantime you do your physical crime. So that's another possibility. Bio cybercrime. So people are having in India. There are lots of genetics labs, and these genetics labs have DNA samples of people. And if DNA samples can be stolen, then you can actually sequence them to find what kind of poison they are allergic to, or what kind of pathogens they are allergic to, and target individuals. So think about a important person like a minister or somebody, and who goes to to do his DNA test, or he or she goes to actually go to a pathology lab from where the pathology information is stolen, or pathology samples are stolen, and DNA sequencing is made, and then that can be used to actually do a targeted bio attack on individuals. So so that's a possibility. The next one we want to talk about, this is happening quite a bit. We have been seeing this since the time when spamming emails used to be done through bots. Bots are computers on the internet that have been infected with botnet malware, and they all work together under the control of command and control servers, and therefore they actually can be used for disabling certain services. And earlier it was actually to attack a website that you don't like, or various kind of mischief. But now it can be done by nation states, and we are seeing that being done by nation states that basically disable certain very essential service. Think about the airlines as they schedule flights, or as they dispatch for clearance of flights, or various other things. You can actually create chaos if they are actually disabled by bot attacks. So this video. All right, so side channel attacks. So earlier we used to talk about side channel attacks, where somebody who is looking at your power outlet and trying to measure the change in the power consumption by your motherboard, and from that to decipher keys or try to interact with your server and see the timing differences and try to see what bits are being computed, etc. But recently we are seeing that browsers are being victimized through side channel attacks. These are side channel attacks that are hardware related. For example, attacks that can be used by the meltdown attack on the Intel chips, and now bringing it to the level of browsers. So the browsers execute code, right? So they use JavaScript code. So by executing JavaScript code, you create an exploit for exploiting the architecture of the processor, like Intel processors have speculative execution, which was exploited to actually create this attack. Now, earlier, this side channel attacks required special equipments to do power measurement or to do timing measurements, electromagnetic effect measurements, and then do the attack. Now you are able to deliver an attack through a web page. And this has happened. Spooked.js is an example. And this might mean that, more attack surface has been created, and therefore more attacks can be expected through the nation states, etc. Now there are AI-assisted cybercrimes, right? So there is AIS service, and so this AIS service, basically what it does is that like Google has certain services, or for example, Amazon Cloud has certain services where you can actually, instead of running, machine learning, deep learning code on your machine, you actually request through APIs, you request for service. Now, what that means is that the service providers, such as Microsoft or Google, etc., they will not know for what purpose you are doing this data crunching. So you can actually use this service to create profiles of people and use that profile information that you have developed using the machine learning models that you cannot afford to run on your machine because you don't have that much hardware or know-how. So you basically create these profiles and use the profiles to actually target phishing, for example, target phishing emails, very, very customized for each individual. And you can do it at very large scale because you are automating it through these APIs. Reverse engineering of AI models or ML models is also used now actually by using it cleverly by making various API calls to know personal information that is part of the model, that is the data on which the model has been trained. And this is a reverse engineering of the model, or you are basically trying to get information about individuals and use that to breach their privacy or target them for very customized phishing campaign or any kind of attacks. And this can happen to our political leaders, military leaders, and important individuals, so that when they are targeted, there are more harm can be done than a common person. Common person may lose some money in the bank through phishing campaign, etc. But more critical information about national security, etc., can be obtained through this. So the other thing that is happening is that we are now talking about autonomous vehicles, self-driving cars. So these cars are actually running on software, firmware, hardware. And there has been multiple works around the world to show that this can be hacked. Now think about, if you have information about a particular target's daily routine, when he goes to a morning walk and when he goes to office and what road he crosses, all you have to do is to actually attack the right vehicle, because there are also vehicles like school buses, etc., which always go at the same time through the same roads. So all you have to do is to attack them, to actually not stop at a green light, not stop at a red light, etc., and create accidents. And you can do this untargeted to just create harm, or you can do it targeted individuals. So here is a video to illustrate this. So here, actually, you see that the entire thing is happening through communication between multiple cars, or car to infrastructure, or car to other cars, or other kind of vehicles. And this communication is using protocols which are not very, very secure, right? So they are basically, a version of our Ethernet Wi-Fi protocol, and it's basically 802.11p. And therefore, you can easily do this, and people have shown that this can be done. All it needs to see, the whole exercise that we have done here is to just what we call threat modeling. We are thinking like an attacker. And so even though it seems like a good thing to have 802.11p based communication between cars to make things smoother for the traffic, etc. But if you are a convoluted mind of an attacker, then you will try to use it to do harm. And so this entire presentation is about just that how it's a thought experiment to show that all these technologies can also be available in the hands of attackers, and what they can do. Sorry, this is repeating. So now, unmanned autonomous vehicles. So recently, last year, government has actually made it, due to the pressure of various lobbying agencies, that make the rules for aviation very simplified for autonomous unmanned autonomous aerial vehicles, right? So drones. So drones are now allowed to move, and there are certain categories of drones they don't even need license, etc., like it is for research purpose, etc. But who is to say that the drone that is meant for a research lab might not be remotely attacked, or when they are in the sky, their control cannot be captured through cyber attack to actually repurpose them to do harm. So here is a scenario that we have found. This is not the only scenario, but what the drones can do in terms of privacy, in terms of physical security, etc., is apparent in this video. So this is from a perspective of a drone. So the drone can do 3D imaging and can actually build the entire building's plan. So if you fly a drone around a building and capture the 3D image, you can actually reconstruct the building plan. And if it's an important building, that could be actually very dangerous for a hybrid attack, where later on the terrorists will have the entire map of the building and they will move easily to their target. So now IoT devices. So IoT devices are going to be ubiquitous. People are talking about trillions of IoT devices all around us. And what that means is, and these IoT devices are usually cheap devices. They are not very secure. And we found that also they have bad random number generation, which means their security. See, random number generation is needed for generating keys. And without generating the keys of which cannot be easily, reverse engineered, we cannot have security. So here is the, picture video. So because we go for cheap IoT devices and there is no regulation to control what we can do and who can sell what IoT devices. Foreign-made IoT devices need not be trusted. And that's what is happening, because we are only looking at the price and features and not so much on the security. And the securing these devices is often quite challenging. Now, 5G, although it has not been yet approved and it's still in the trial stage, you might have seen in the recent last week or this week that there was a problem of 5G tower interfering with the navigation of flights near an airport. But that is probably not an intentional one. That is just unfortunate interference. But that could have created air accidents. But there are lots of different attack possibilities in the 5G. We are also hurrying because of the commercial interest. We are hurrying into 5G without properly securing it, and we don't have regulations for securing 5G infrastructure. And therefore, 5G could be actually one of the major problems through conduit for attackers to use, and at a very high velocity and very high volume. Denial of service attacks to various kinds of attacks will be possible through 5G. So we have to actually worry about that as well. Now, we are also tending towards using implantable medical equipment like pacemaker, insulin pump, and various other prosthetics, and which are actually embedded, which has embedded computing devices, and they also communicate outside for better management and all that stuff. So that all sounds very good, but unfortunately, that also allows attackers to do things that we don't want to be done. We can be even killed. So here is an explanation of what can happen. So you see that if I'm wearing an insulin pump and my insulin pump mechanism is cyber attacked and I am given a very high dose of insulin, I can die. And this actually has been demonstrated in Lala. So now here is, let me see if I missed something. Okay. So another thing that we are allowing our kids to play multiplayer games just because it's convenient for us. They get engaged for hours and they won't bother us and all that stuff. But what that means is that there is a lot of not only various possibilities of abuse, sexual abuse, etc. on online multiplayer game platforms, because it is also a communication platform. It is also used for actually delivering attack payloads like phishing attacks and even malware attacks. This is done. So here is just a video to explain that. So that's the danger of the game. Now, another thing that is happening, and with the Facebook going all over the world with the Meta and all this augmented and virtual reality, manipulation of people's thought process, as well as knowing what scares a person, what makes a person happy, what makes a person sad, all these things can be actually obtained about individuals by engaging them in augmented and virtual reality games and various virtual reality platforms, because you are collecting data about the person who is engaging in it. So Facebook Meta, for example, is, in my belief, needs to be highly regulated by every country, because otherwise Facebook already gets a lot of factual information about us and many things that other things like what makes us happy, angry, etc. But they can get even more in-depth understanding of our how our cognitive processes work by engaging us into these games, and thereby they actually can build even more accurate profile of us, sell that information, through which a third party, including a nation state, can manipulate our citizens in a very, very big way. So here is just to show you what it is like. So it has other side effects like, dehumanizing ourselves, getting overly addicted to this kind of games, and thereby not doing the right human resources development. But bigger is what I'm worried about is the psychology operations, or what we call psychops in the military language, as well as misinformation campaign, inducing people to do things which are not good things, like rioting, etc. And as well as collecting this huge amount of information about individuals' psychological profiles. So this is something that we are very worried about. Sorry. Then there is cloud, right? So the cloud, we all know that we are now relying more and more on cloud. We are getting service from Amazon, from Microsoft Azure, or we are getting DigitalOcean and all that stuff, and we are storing immense amount of data. We often don't have backup. I got a call from a startup last year that said that they had a pretty large business thing, and their entire code and everything was on the cloud, and it has been ransomware, and they don't have backup. So, well, having a backup is one important thing for this kind of ransomware attacks to happen. But through the cloud, because you are using shared infrastructure, you are using shared platforms, and you are also doing immense amount of API calls across the internet, which can be intercepted and disrupted in various ways. So this dependence on cloud can be also exploited by attacker gangs and nation state attackers. So here is, I think, a picture. Yeah, so this is just to show how clouds have become ubiquitous. It is actually over centralization, and therefore over single point of failure that can be exploited. There is also a case where we are actually we are creating various services which has been made our lives convenient. Like, for example, doing messaging across multiple different telecom operators, right? So if you remember earlier that if you are a BSNL subscriber, to send a message to, or to make a call to a Vodafone customer, you have to pay extra, etc. But now there is no such barriers, because technology has enabled this, and there are exchanges, what they call exchanges, which are used to actually mediate this inter-operator activities. And last year there was one of this very large intermediary, Cineverse, was hacked, and millions of SMS and everything was revealed. So this dependence on centralized or almost centralized architectures to enable this convenient communication things have actually made things very, very bad for us. Now, the next one is that 3D printers. So 3D printers have become a very common item now. 10 years ago, or even 7-8 years ago, only very few research labs would have them. Now you can buy one at home. Now what is happening is that people are creating guns, people are creating drugs, and people are creating various genetic through the genetic code, they are creating artificial limbs, and soon this will actually be exploding. So let's see this video to where a lab in US is creating drugs using, these are obviously pharmaceutical drugs, not the contraband drugs. But if pharmaceutical drugs can be made, then you can also make the contraband drugs through this, right? So other than guns and other things, this is a problem. And the other problem is to create security key card and ATM card, etc., to falsify them. It is, right now it is not that easy, but it will become very easy after this. So anyway, so this is the drug video. Yeah, so they are creating drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, but it can be also repurposed to make other drugs. Bluetooth hack is also very common. So recently, only one lab in Singapore, they published like 30 different vulnerabilities in the Bluetooth interfaces of very common devices. And with that, you can listen to other people's communication. You can manipulate devices. So various kinds of things that are happening because of Bluetooth, over usage of Bluetooth. Okay, so that's the Bluetooth hack, and now we are in robotics. So these robots are soldier robots. So these soldier robots can also be used to actually do assassination. They can be used for suicide bombing, and obviously, if terrorists get their hand on this, this would be something that they would be using a lot. Source code poisoning is another one that happened in the last year's SolarWinds, and there has been a case recently. So this is basically what happened in SolarWinds. There is also steganographic malware in images, in music for videos, in music files. So this is something that is also taking a lot of toll, especially steganographic ransomware. Okay. So now there is also cryptocurrency, cryptojacking, and then NFT scams, right? So those who are thinking that cryptocurrency is a boon, it's actually a very, very worldwide gigantic Ponzi scheme. And then they're applying their brain to invent various other things such as NFT, for example. So here is an example of NFT related crime. Okay, so there are lots. I mean, we can talk about hours on hours of how NFT and cryptocurrency scams are happening, but I just wanted to make you aware of that. So, so that is, I think I have run out of time, and that is exactly what I wanted to talk about. Just a lot of in the form of some entertainment. You can get. Get to think like the criminals, and then you can think like what the criminals can do to actually your future. You are all young people, and your future needs to be secured. And if this keeps going on at this pace, there may not be a future. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Dr. Shukla. I think we need to have you again to just share all the upcoming technologies to really combat these comprehensive list of crimes that you have really shared with us. Really very interesting, and I'm sure it really probably, brought all of the audiences, exposure also to all of these things happening today. In fact, when you say emerging, much of this is already happening, and I think we need to really seriously consider what direction are we taking to be able to take care of these. I would love to have you once again as an invited speaker to just talk about the emerging technologies as well. But like you correctly said, we're running out of time, and we do have our next speaker already joined us. So that I'd really like to thank you so much, Dr. Shukla, for really taking the time and to be with us today.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate very much your time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.